Unmuted. Okay. And we'll go ahead and call our work session to order for the Orem City Planning Commission at 4:35 p.m. on June 17th, 2026 in the City Council Conference Room. We'll start by looking at if there's any questions about our agenda for tonight. It's lunch.
Anything on the regular agenda that didn't make sense or questions about it, want to get out before the meeting?
No, I think I want to do the practical.
It all looks fine. Doesn't it?
I mean, I'm excited that Costco's getting double the number of homes. They've done that. Some more of my kids live there. They've done it there. It makes much stress. So exciting too. Those lights are off.
Lines are awful. Yeah, and they'll redirect it so that you're not driving stalls to get through.
Whatever they knew was going to be about that, so that's a good thing.
If there's no questions, then we'll move on to our discussion about the new state mandate for detached accessory dwelling units.
Hey.
We thought we'd start the conversation. I do. But I thought we'd start the conversation by going what the state says we can and can't do, because maybe this is the lawyer in me, but it's very it's a very good place to start in terms of what we are looking at, because there are some specific things and there's a lot they're saying you could choose. So.
Okay. Well, the most important thing probably to note at first is that the deadline for adoption for us is October 1st, 2026. We currently do not allow detached ADUs of any kind. I'm going to refuse to let myself start calling them dadus. I'm not doing that. I'm going to say on a regular basis, I'm going to say DADUs or detached ADUs, but I will not be saying dadu. We got to do it by October 1st. Now, with the way that public hearings go and the way that we have to round them out and everything, we probably need to hold our public hearings for this as a commission if we want to be adopted by October 1. Probably need to hold ours in July. So, or at least, at least the end of July, if we can get one by the end of July. So the first place to start would talk about what the state makes us do. And that'll get the, but if there's ideas that you have, as we're talking about this, directions we may want to go or might want to explore that we can get ready for you for next time, please yell them out, get them in there. We'll get the notes and start working on it. So the new code, October 1st, and it basically says that any municipality of a certain size, we were over 5,000 people, probably for the last 50 years, we've been over 5,000 people. We have to adopt something and allow detached ADUs on lots that are 11,000 square feet or larger. It doesn't say zones. They steered clear of that. So any lot, it wouldn't matter what kind of residential zone. It's going to be residential zoning or a zone that permits a single family dwelling. If we have a zone that permits a single family dwelling and there is a lot in that zone that's 11,000 square feet, we have to accommodate that lot for detached accessory dwelling. Does that make sense? So right now, we don't have any multifamily zones in Orem. We have residential zones R5, R65, R6, R75, R8, R12, R20. And we do actually, as a permitted use, allow OS5 zones to have open space 5-acre zones and rural residential 20 acre zones to have single family homes as a permitted use. So those would all be eligible as well, as long as they're 11,000 square feet or larger. You can go smaller. Go ahead.
Are HOAs affected by this?
HOAs are private contracts. So the bottom line is if we make all of our rules and then you live in an HOA that says you can't have an ADU in your house,
It's fine.
their HOA is that trumps us.
I would assume that.
Yep, contracts between private citizens.
So I guess one really broad question would be, what's the percentage of homes that we have currently in Orem that are on lots less than 11,000 square feet?
It's a good question. I don't know the percentage of that. We have a fair number of lots that are large, that are good sized, but we have a ton of 10,000 square foot lots. Probably the average is going to probably fall somewhere around 10 and a half.
Yeah, I was going to say so. The reason why I was thinking that is that will allow us to kind of determine mentally what percentage would be applicable for one, and then two, how, because then the next step is based on how many lots are at 11,000 square feet, how many lots are at 12,000 square feet? What percentage of those do we want
Yeah.
to be capable of putting in an ADU, number one? And then that will help us determine, okay, if a house is this size, if a property is this size, we have a house with this many square feet, there's got to be a mathematical equation there where we can say, okay, based on the criteria, we can allow this big of an ADU based on that criteria.
Yeah, that's exactly where we're gonna be. And we have latitude, you're gonna see in this conversation, that gives us latitude. Setback. Sizes we're gonna allow, it could be, we could go with a percentage lots. So the real baseline question is, how much of it do you want? As a city, how much latitude do you want to give detached ADUs? We already allow quite a bit for regular accessory dwelling units, internal ones. We have quite a few. I don't know what the number is on the list. The list have a lot of ADUs, internal ADUs. The first question is, how much validity, or are there more inherent problems with detached ADUs? Do you want to limit them more than regular ADUs? Somewhere out there, probably yes. They got to be more impactful. They're outside the house, right?
For parking, 'cause you're gonna, if it's a garage home that they're turning into, then you just lost those 2 parking spaces for the home.
We'll cover that.
We're going to get to that. They've thought of some of these things. We can. We're gonna have a few kind of sort of mainstream things we need to deal with. And that's one of them.
Yeah.
Let's go on from this one, and we'll talk about a couple others. Just as a reminder too, 11,000 square feet or larger, legal but non-conforming homes in the C2 zone. Let's say you've got a house in the C2 zone. Our C2 zone does not allow single family homes. So it doesn't matter how big your lot is, you're not eligible for that. You can't, we don't have to make it. Now we can, but under this code, we don't have to meet state. So that's another question we have to answer. These are all questions we have to answer. So let's start with the things. So that's the why we're doing it and the basic. And there are a couple of hard, fast rules that it has to do. The state code says we have to do. We have to require compliance with building, health, and fire codes. We love to violate those in all other ways, but in this particular instance, they would like us to just stay within those bounds. I don't know why they bothered putting that in there, like we wouldn't, but you know, there it is. And then also, we have to allow a legally constructed accessory structure, like a detached garage, to be converted into a DADU if it can meet the setbacks in building and health and fire codes. And that's where I chose this picture because it kind of is placed on the lot like a lot of detached garages are. It's right up against property lines. And in fact, whatever AI slop made this one, put it a little too close. But the point is that it's right there in the corner. So that's a question about setbacks and things. We might have some garages that are detached garages. It would be converted if we allow certain setbacks, smaller setbacks. It just depends on how we feel like it. But I know that leading up to this, there's been a lot of conversation amongst planners, at least, about detached garages. They seem like an obvious choice for people to convert their detached garage that no one's using anymore. They got 3-car garage on the house. They're like, well, we got this garage in the back too. Let's turn that into an ADU. Well, maybe it's only 5 feet from the property lines. And people are less likely to think that's okay. So that's been a conversation. It's an obvious choice. Or to add a story over the garage, add the Fonzie flat, put them over the garage. But then, Mrs. Cunningham has it fair.
Is that an official term? Fonzie flat?
Fonzie flat, it's ours now. Have it.
The dictionary, I'm sure.
It's pretty sure. A lot of great people. Mork lived over a garage. I'm told I am. Okay. So does that make sense? These are the only 2 shalls yet. And be 11,000. I mean, obviously, be 11,000 square feet. It cannot require a conditional use permit. I don't think we care. We don't do a lot of conditional use permits anymore anyway. Have you ever processed a conditional use permit?
Oh, me? No.
I haven't processed one here. I don't know, probably.
I haven't seen one for
very undesirable.
Yeah, we don't, we have a few things that are still like, if you want to have public dancing, you have to. That's like the only,
This is footloose.
yeah, it's footloose.
I got the music in my head. We're done.
You can sell cannabis without a conditional use permit, but you cannot dance without a
When I
conditional use
dance,
permit.
yes. It is footloose.
Not in public anyway.
Time for dancing.
What you do in your own homes, you can dance like, but not in public. use permit, you can't require setbacks from property lines or from another detached dwelling, make it unreasonably difficult to do a detached accessory dwelling. Madeline and I were talking about this yesterday. I don't know what unreasonably is.
Yeah.
That's going to be, we're going to be shooting in the dark a little bit, but we'll know unreasonable when we feel it or when we suggest it. We'll just have to kind of leave that. But that's what it says. Make it unreasonable. We cannot require more than 2 on-site spaces for a detached unit that is 650 square feet or larger. And we cannot require more than 1 on-site space for a detached ADU that is less than 6 square feet. We cannot require design standards that conflict with section 10-2016. 10-2016, just so you know, is the state code section that does not allow us. It used to be, they call them pretty codes. It doesn't let us do pretty codes anymore. You say you have to have a pitched roof because of 10-2618. You also can't mandate garages under 10-2618. So you can't say that they have to have a garage for this ADU. We'll see on the next pages here that you can, if we allowed someone to turn their garage, their detached garage into an ADU, and they counted on those spaces, those required spaces for their house. Like this, let's say this was the detached garage and it's the only garage they had, and they needed those spaces to meet the parking requirement of their home, and they turn it into an ADU. We can make them replace those spaces for the house, or we can't make them replace those spaces in a garage, not under 10-26. And tandem parking is the new one. I didn't know this until I've read this, but because lots of codes that I've administered over the years don't count tandem parking as more than 1 space. You have two tandem spaces, like deep, car here, and a code will say, well, that only counts as 1 because no one will move the car. That you're the boyfriend of anybody parking back of the dad's car and it's your own driveway. That's it. You might as well just I've been there and I never went back. But they can't not count them. Right, this code, we won't be able to say tandem spaces don't count. That long driveway doesn't get you 3 spaces or 2 spaces. It does. It needs to. So that's something to be aware of. What we are allowed to do is require conformance to land use regulations for size, dimension, height, and lot coverage. We have some of those. We allow, for example, only 8% of a rear yard or 8% of the total lot can be covered by accessory structures. And this is a kind of accessory structure. So we could say we could exempt it if we wanted. And in this code as we're writing it, but we can also say, your lot still needs to meet that. If you've already got 5% of your lot area taken up with a giant garage and workshop, well, your ADU is going to have to be small if you want to do it. With 8%, so I think, or we could modify the 8%. There's lots of ways we could go, but we're allowed to do that. Height as well. We have height regulations for accessory structures that range between 18 feet. 18 feet tall, Becca, remind me, 18 feet tall if you meet the setbacks.
18 feet if you're in the
If
setback.
you're within the setback.
And if you're able to clear it all the way, then you can match the height of the home.
So for example, if this is a 25-foot required setback to the rear yard and your accessory structure, not an accessory dwelling unit, because we don't have that yet, but a garage you're building back here is inside that 25 feet from the rear, it can only be the 18 feet tall. But if you can meet the 25 like the house does, then you can be as tall as the house. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So those rules can all stay. They can all be part of it. We can write new ones for them. We can exempt them from them. We could just apply our old rules for it and say it's an accessory structure. It gets 18 feet. Unless it's meeting the same setbacks as the house. That's an easy fix because we just don't even make a change. We just leave it alone. It can be required to be designed to be consistent with the primary dwelling. So you can require that it be, this is a question that's come up with other accessory structures for me sometimes. Does that mean if the house is blue, it's got to be blue? Or does that mean if the house is siding, it has to be siding? Or how far does that go? Or does it have to be exactly the same or match it? Consistent is probably not absolute matching, but these are
Or like
art.
1960s, 1970s home,
Yeah.
modern construction.
Yeah.
So we can't build the block that we were talking about with roof lines before. We can't do a mini block in the back.
A mini block could be under the height. It's an aesthetic choice, right?
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, those are things we have to talk about.
That's absolutely.
Don't have to make that requirement either.
Current code says that accessory structures that are over 500 square feet have to match either the primary structure of the lot that they are on or another home within a certain radius. So it matches a.
Don't you always feel a little squishy trying to figure that out? Like if it's really matching it or not? I know I always do.
It's just,
And this is actually something we're really gonna have to dwell on. And I know it sounds like funny, but a lot of like new construction, you'll see people will build like even in Salt Lake, you'll have a historic home and then they'll have this real modern attachment or
It's not on West.
Right.
Skill.
you look at, yeah, and then you look at a lot of the like tiny home things that are coming out, prefab small homes that, you know, you have the crane to pick it up, put it in your backyard and you're good to go. A lot of those have more modern aesthetics.
Yeah.
Are we going to block that off or not? Or say you have to put siding on it? So just things to think about, but
It is, it
It
is gonna,
says it may be designed.
you don't have to do that.
And that's gonna be the trick because, yeah.
these are maze.
We have to decide as a city if we want the accessory dwelling units, attached accessory to mirror the houses.
And
Or if you got a, you know, grandma's old house with the Swiss days scroll work all over the porch and you put the,
Which is interesting, because they tell you you can't do the pretty codes on the.
yeah, that was my question is,
But you can.
Well, they haven't got there
Match.
yet. Well, give it a couple of years of recline. When we don't made them match them and people are complaining about that, then they'll come back and say, you gotta let them just plunk the whatever down.
Yeah.
Because the point is to easily, not just cheaply, but easily and efficiently say, I'm pouring a pad back here and running a couple of utility lines, and on Thursday, there'll be a dwelling unit back there. Because I don't have to do anything other than drop it in and hook it up.
Yeah.
I don't have to construct anything. That's what people want. There you go.
I see you've got easements up there, so I'm just assuming they can't be plop on easement.
Yeah, easements are still, you can let people locate things in easements. It's not a great idea.
But generally, if they have a permit, or they're applying for a permit, we're gonna say, hey, that's not really.
Yeah, it's, well, and we do, I mean, in one way, there is a little bit of nuance there because we will, for example, with a permit for a shed or a garage, if somebody needs to violate the side yard easements, hardly ever get used. So let's say this is a side yard easement right here. And it doesn't get used very much. And this garage they wanted to build here, they came to the city and said, we want to build this garage, but it's going to be 4 feet into our 10-foot easement or 3 feet into our 10-foot side yard easement. We can say, go get waivers from all the people that hold rights in that easement, to say that they don't care and you can build it. And then they don't have to vacate the easement. They don't have to go through that whole process to get rid of it with a plat, but they can get waivers instead. This would, if we didn't, we could let them do that with these two, get waivers instead of having to just stay out of the easements. Rear yard easements, it's hard to get that waiver. Side yard easements, it's not actually that hard to get a waiver.
Seen a lot.
We also don't have very many. So I'm assuming that if you have backyard power lines and stuff like that, the mortgages, I mean, you can't, most mortgage companies won't lend under a power line, right?
Yeah. It would be hard to do it, even if you got it.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't get it from Rocky Mountain anyway. They don't like it. Unless it's a really tall line, really high line. Yeah, so there you go. We can prohibit them from locating easements. We can prohibit them from being larger than the primary dwelling. That's a whole conversation.
Sure.
That I have no idea where everybody feels about these things. So, you know, and then we can prohibit them from being located in the front yard area. And we can prohibit them from being rented for any less than 90 consecutive days. Right now, the city is in the throes of the short-term rental. So there's going to be a contingency of people who want to be able to put a detached ADU in their backyard. Airbnb that summer. There'll be a whole bunch of people that also don't want that happening. And so,
2 phone calls about it today.
yeah, it's going to be
Yeah.
There's no.
streets.
That were like, can I do this? And I'm like, no, but by state law, we have to, it was originally, they were asking if we had allowed detached yet. Like, currently, no. Ask again in October and we'll have a code by then. She's like, do you think I'll be able to Airbnb it? And I was like, that is. Just ask me in October.
Don't think the streets are going to run with flood.
Yeah.
It's
Just so you're aware, all the cities doing the research on this, all the cities that I've come across so far that allow detached ADUs do not allow short-term rentals in it. To make it very clear that this is to house the people who live in our community.
Yeah.
And that's the purpose of it. So don't be afraid to stand up and make a, and make a decision when it comes to those sorts of things, because most of the cities have.
ADUs,
Yes.
Grace, has that been, and I don't know if you would know this offhand or not, but is that specific to detached ADUs or to ADUs in
Detached.
general?
Detached ADUs. Yep.
So it's a tough,
Well, it makes sense. It makes sense to me that it's limited to long-term rentals. You know, for somebody who's looking for a home,
Yeah, exactly.
not to have their, yeah.
Well, I just came from a STR meeting prior to this with our attorney. And this is on our agenda for work session and city council next week. I think where we are at on that, just to give you an update, is that we will be discussing some details in a draft ordinance in our work session next week. We're trying to do our best to see how much alignment there is across the city council in advance of that meeting. But the intent is that it will make it to planning commission. It's going to kind of make it to planning commission in weird order, because we've already spent a ton of time on this, and usually we spend the time after you guys have spent the time on it. But just because we think that there are land use related things in here, we want you to also look at it and also provide us feedback on that. So that's not imminent, but it's not too far away.
coming.
Have you guys talked about detached ADUs and?
I don't think anybody other than maybe me knows this is a thing, so.
Well, we're just throw another lot of gasoline on.
Well, they kind of pumped it through. It looked all through the session, it looked like it wasn't going to happen again, right at the end.
Yeah.
All our 3 months to get it done. Okay, I'm sorry.
You're good.
So that'll be a whole conversation. Twice, 2 different times.
Yeah. And that's probably good that we discuss it multiple times.
And I think once we get through going through all this, we'll start back at the top and work.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Because there's definitely some things I've been like, oh, we should be thinking about this. So.
Definitely. Another list of things that we're able to do, that we are allowed to do. We can require the owner of the property to reside in the either the ADU or the, just like we do that currently with our current internal ADUs. That's pretty typical. We can require the replacement of any parking spaces that are eliminated because of the ADU, the garage is converted. We can prohibit having more than one ADU, whether it's detached or internal, on a lot. So you can say anybody that's already got an ADU in their house, don't care how big your lot is, outside too. We can say that, we don't have to, we can't allow more than one. We can and we can prohibit an ADU if there's not adequate sewer access or electrical access, or if there's not capacity for one of those utilities too. So that'll be part of our review for ADUs. It already probably is. So. But detached ADUs as well.
So this might affect those homes that are on septic. With this,
Yeah,
because they might, right? Because those are based on the
Yeah.
number of occupant size.
they're all on, and if their home's on septic, a lot of them are on variances that the city granted to be on the septic.
Yeah.
So instead of hooking up, so it can affect them, yeah. Going forward, this is just, and then we can go back and start at the top again, but they're currently, just so you know, where we'd be looking at this, ADUs right now are regulated in an article in the zoning code 2261, 226I, 2261. I forget. But anyway, 226 something. And that's where they are. It's in our supplementary and qualifying. No, sorry, that's not right. It's in our regulations for specific uses, which is another way of saying supplementary and qualifying. We have that too. It's hard to find if you're not know where you're looking for it, but there's no, I've been trying to see if there's a better place to put it. I think that there is. This is, we probably just want to add on to this for detached. We'll add a segment for detached stuff too, if that works for everybody. Does anyone have any strong feelings about where we ought to reside?
Best place in Phillips Overhauled.
Yeah.
It's a weird collection of,
It's quite a collection of stuff.
we were having a good laugh.
Swimming pools and
Yeah.
So it's a weird collection of things.
Can you convert a swimming pool into an,
It
Oh,
doesn't say that you can't.
Yeah.
Subterranean ADU.
that was one of our squirrels
there.
yesterday, was does the pool count towards your 8%?
I want to do this. Nobody say anything. All of you that are planners or are planning adjacent in your careers, close your eyes. And when I say, you have to raise your hand when you agree with what I say.
Okay,
It's about swimming.
okay.
Does a swimming pool count as an accessory structure? Not an accessory use, an accessory structure. Raise your hand if it does. Raise your hand if it does not. So it's a little more 50-50. I thought it'd be more 50-50. It's more like 60-40, maybe 70-30. I'm not going to tell you which way.
That's dirty. That's dirty.
On the tiny little video. Go back and look.
If you want to get technical, Orem City Code defines structure as anything attached to the ground, so
Is anything?
it'd be a structure.
A plant?
I never changed my vote.
See, that was the thing with the one I'm working on right now. The code is anything that's above ground.
Anything above the ground. So
Anything, any structure that's built on the surface of the ground.
The slide counts, but the pool itself.
Pool itself. Yeah.
That's
You were
really-
talking about the pool.
It's that kind of a,
If you can get it, if you get homeowners insurance, if you have a diving board, that's the.
Well, I didn't say if it was possible. I'm just.
Is that?
And then otherwise,
yeah.
perfectly reasonable planner tried to choke me out over this argument once years ago. I still
I never thought.
Well, I guess it depends on our
still
definition.
flinch when I think about it. Our definition.
Infinity pool, it's above ground, right?
Yeah, that's true. How far up to the edge of the pool have to
Because
come
our-
up?
Consider
Hot tubs and jacuzzis don't
Consider swimming pools accessory uses. Not clear to me if we.
Yeah.
Accessory structures, who knows? I don't,
Hot tubs and jacuzzis excluded. It was.
they were excluded. Hot tubs and jacuzzis,
Is there, generally considered as non-permanent structure.
they're not subject to the rules of swimming. So
It's very strange.
anyway, there's a lot of weird crap in this house. They're not listed as permitted uses in the standard land use code or anything. So really the only place they really belong for us.
So all those things going on out there, do you sleep at night or just?
I do, every
Okay.
once in a while, but only for like 20 minutes at a time. For the voices waiting.
They're angry.
That's fine. They get angry and hungry and then I just had questions. And this is actually, I chose this picture because the ADU is very different looking than the house.
Yeah.
And so that's one of those kind of jarring.
I think it's better looking than the house.
For the landscape.
Shows, this one too. This one I can't tell. This one kind of matches.
To the side
It's the same. It's the problem when you have codes that say it should. It's like, where do you draw the line? I hate those type of codes, by the way.
Yeah, yeah.
Just can tell you straight up, because it makes it really hard to objectively approve a plan.
It's a very subjective thing. Should it, is it? Kind of matches.
Well, some things like my home is brick and it's a wild, crazy brick. I can't find brick to
So
match.
for you to match that.
So I can't match it.
Or let's say you live in a historic house and you want to have an ADU.
Well, and I've seen some, this is a long time ago, not this city, the city I worked in, one planner would be like, oh yeah, that matches. Another planner like,
It's
you
completely.
need to find the crazy brick or I'm not approving this plan.
It's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brick, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
I just ask for Jared and other planners in the room, how popular do you think this will be?
Very.
The biblical phrase, right?
Yes.
Seemingly?
The Mormon phrase.
Well, it'll probably be as popular as ADUs and basements. I mean, if you can do it, they'll do it.
Becca and Emma and Grace and I were
I
talking.
think one of the challenges, people may be interested, but can they finance it? I think that's gonna be one of your biggest hurdles.
If we allow them to be small enough and we don't have a lot of requirements for different things, you could probably build it. The average person could probably finance one without financing it. Just they'd screw up their home equity. They could use home equity to do it.
Yeah.
Screw up their
Well, shut
finance
up.
on their main house.
Yeah.
But I mean,
You'll have $100,000 in it.
sure.
I don't know.
I mean, without even breaking a sweat half the time.
Yes, yeah, easily.
I'm thinking about new
We
owners.
consistently get calls.
Older orders.
Well, I
All the
don't.
time.
See, you're looking at a situation where people are looking at it as a supplement.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so if they have square footage to allow for it, they're going to push for it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a huge issue and also just short-term rentals as well. Because people are looking for ways because they can't afford a house.
Well, that's why I think you have to have parameters around it.
Yes,
to make it
exactly.
so it's. So it's
There's
there's got
reason.
one.
Yeah.
I think we do have to start this from the position that this is gonna be very popular. And so how do we do it in a way that it creates the least amount of neighbor conflict and allows people to have property rights? So that's about, that is about right, right?
I think the way that I've seen it done before, so is they've been really rigid on the setbacks.
Yeah.
Because if you're right on somebody's fence line, you're going to catch, it's just inevitable if there's going to be problems. And there's also issues if the structure catches on fire. It's right next to the other property. So I think it's all going to come down to how large based on percentage and what are our setbacks going to be.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably 100% correct. Those are the biggest single issues for it impacting other people, setbacks.
So detached garage, what are the general setback requirements for?
Well, a detached structure, an accessory structure can come to, for the zoning code's sake, can come right up to property lines as long as it's draining on your own property. You can't, fire codes won't let you be within the distance from.
So it was,
Well, the building codes change within 5 feet. So your building codes change within 5, but fire codes also will let you be located within a certain number of feet from somebody else's home, like 50 feet of somebody else's home or something. So it depends. But our zoning code will let you go right to the line. But that's usually not what applies. It's usually there's setback or there's easement issues and there's building code issues and drainage issues. And so
Sometimes when they do build even like a shed under 200 square feet, right, property line. So people mad about that.
Anything with human occupancy is going to have a firewall separation, which usually dictates them as 6 feet distance from the adjoining structure.
so that's the bare minimum is probably 5.
that's,
Females on the other side of the fences.
Easements probably, most people that give easements for things. So when a company, we talked about easement issues and typical 7 or 8 foot easement in a lot of lot edges, or even 10 in some cases. And people might be willing to give up those easements or sign a waiver for those easements when their structure that's going in is a shed or something that's not that important, because they're going to have to take it down if they ever need to. And they'll usually retain that right and say, well, if we ever really, really need to, you understand, they won't be as comfortable doing that with a detached accessory dwelling units because it's somebody's home. So you'd be looking at eviction and that would slow them down. So you should probably just say they don't get to be easements, period, waiver. Otherwise. That would be the safest play, and that will keep them all at least 8 feet off.
We've got a lot of lots that have an easement on one side and not the other. And so that's why for us as planners, it's so much easier for a decision to be made as to a bare minimum, no matter what, that's required. We actually don't have that in place for our other accessory buildings, and I wish we did. If we just had something that said, no matter what, you need to be 3 feet away from your fence line or your lot line, then that makes things so much clearer and so much easier. So,
And that's actually the standard in Provo.
and so
It's a minimum of 3 feet.
So the preference is to at least have a minimum no matter what, and then go from there with easements or whatever else.
Reason for the 3 feet is nobody can violate this. Fire
yeah,
raise 3 feet away, you gotta have the default building of 6 feet.
6 feet.
and they're also, we're saying that in case of an emergency, you have space for a body to run in between whatever fence line and structure is there.
So
Is the other, what about lot that would be helpful to start? I think the setback issue is the main one to me. That's
So
a lot of I've administered 2 different codes, in 2 different cities that allowed accessory dwelling units that are detached. And they both had one had a really significant size restriction 800 square feet, nothing, didn't matter how big your lot was, et cetera. And the other was a setback issue. They required the same setbacks as the home. So the detached accessory dwelling unit, you could have one, but it had to be,
So far.
you had to still meet your 25 feet for the rear or 30 feet or whatever it was. And candidly, we didn't have a single detached accessory dwelling unit. Nobody could meet that. Nobody that wanted to build one could meet it.
And I don't think you have many that would meet it here.
No.
So I think that's what they're talking about when they say, what did they say? How did they say it?
Too hard for them.
Require setbacks that make it unreasonably difficult. Requiring the same setbacks as the primary home might be unreasonably difficult. But I don't know,
But at the same time, with the size of the lot,
yeah.
you know,
So like the lot my house is on is one of those rectangular ones. And so by the time our house is in the middle, we went out, the only space where we would consider it backyard, measured it, it was literally 37 by 34 feet. So that we were like, okay, so what size could we get? We have a public utility easement that's 8 feet from the back fence. I don't think we have one along that one side. And then like has to be so far from the house. How big of an accessory dwelling unit could we build? Because I mean, like for us, expansion would be building something outside. So my husband has a dedicated office, or it's finishing the basement, which probably actually means expanding the back of our house. And so when you start making those determination, and just as another aside, when I got on the planning commission, my then 10-year-old daughter told me my job was to make it so she could legally live in a tiny home in our backyard. So I'm slightly, it's happening. And she keeps going, has it happened yet? I'm like, working on it. So anyway, this is a fascinating thing in our family, but just we are dealing with a lot of odd shaped lots. We're dealing with a lot of
you know,
things, and I do go to where we draw this line, but see, I don't meet the 11,000. So right there.
Yeah.
Bring it down, but we set.
So one of the things that we have to do is we have to meet the requirements of the state, right? That's our stop. We got to get that done by then. How difficult is it to be middle of the road on our setbacks and everything, not be crazy one way or the other and put it in place? And if we find out through experience it's not working, can we come back and revisit it? Because like it's kind of like you can churn on details until you go crazy.
Probably talk for 6 months.
Yeah. Right. But can we do something that's reasonable and meets the requirements, and then, because it's brand new stuff, right? Yeah, we're gonna have a certain percentage that are gonna qualify, let them go.
Good point.
And then if we find out that there's a greater demand and public outcry or whatever that is, we come back and make it a little more lenient.
I think it goes both ways because it's easier to set something from the beginning than to go back and change it.
But-
And depending upon what we decide, I think this is to me the minimum standard. Are we going to be okay with whatever happens in 5 years? Because we may not know. It may be the box that we don't know until people start applying.
Unintended consequence.
And there will be. No matter which way we slice this, there will be unintended
It's
consequences.
diminishing returns then, right? It's just, you can spend enough time trying to consider every possible
Yeah.
nuance and so.
I think, I agree with you. And I think what we're looking at is, it's not the person wanting to put it in that's going to have the major gripes, it's going to be the neighbors.
Yeah.
And that's where we're going to hear from it the most. So whatever decision we come up with is going to have the neighbor in mind that affects them the least. So yeah, I think I go right along with what we were saying before. I think the setbacks are going to be the major issue, and then probably it's going to be,
Height.
height.
I was gonna say height next.
It's like what we were talking about a couple of weeks. It's going to be a height issue. Well, they're going to be, it's in the backyard. They're going to be looking into my backyard, and I don't like that. So
Parking is set for us. Can only do, they did that, they took parking away from us. So
Yeah.
2 or 1, depending on the size. You require 3 or 4
So can you be as specific as,
in addition to the houses. Yes.
can you be as specific in the detached notice I didn't say tattoo.
Thank you.
I'm using that.
There are no windows on the backside? I mean, can you be, because then they can't look in the neighbor's yard.
Because then you're getting into egress issues.
Might, yeah, depending on what the.
Yeah, you might have fire code issues by
Yeah.
by eliminating, especially in a
But you
bedroom.
can on the front, right? You can have them on the front, so that might limit what they do on that second
There's a
floor.
limit for the porch, right? A patio with it,
Yeah.
facing your neighbor, or something of that nature, but they don't talk about the windows.
Okay.
So one question I do have,
Just thinking.
one of the major constraints that we always have, especially on Orem with our smaller streets, is parking on the street. Is going to be a requirement where they have to have enough for another pad?
We can require,
Yeah. I think that's on the list too.
Because I mean, legitimately, it's going to be,
And on those sides, yeah.
I'm just saying, based on what I have in my neighborhood, I've got houses with 5+ cars in front of them at the end of every
Sure.
day.
Yeah.
And it's a big issue during school season because we have all those kids walking to Orem Elementary and it's like,
Yeah.
kids are kids.
we can require. it.
So two quick things, because we are reaching the time we need to change. Do we want to continue this conversation? We have a short meeting tonight. Do we want to leave our work session open to return?
Continue. Well, I'm up for.
I'm asking you three. I'm fine with it if you guys are.
I'm fine with it.
I don't want to be too late because I need to go back to Caroline Drive, so.
We'll respect that.
Absolutely.
And then, the other one, I think the base question is, we have to do it 11,000 and above. Do we have any interest in going below 11,000, or do we just start with 11,000 and say, let's see how it goes?
I'd say just set it at 11,000. Let's keep it simple. If we go too small, then it opens us up for a lot more that we have to deal with.
Still allow ADUs in other, it's not like a person with 10,000 square feet cannot have an ADU. They just can only have an internal ADU.
And I think that's a good dividing point.
Right.
Based on lot size, 11,000 square feet plus, okay.
We take
Well, and you just think about the neighbors, you talk about the neighbors.
more space you have, then the less chance you're gonna have an issue.
Yeah.
We can start with that as a baseline. Well, we've got GIS people that can probably run the average lot size in the city. We'll see. I bet it's close to 11.
I bet it is.
I bet it's not far. And something, 10, 2, 10, 3.
But that would give us a square footage parameter to start from. And I think that's a good.
Start with 10, we can.
How many square feet per acre?
There are 43,560 square feet in an acre.
So we're talking about a quarter of an acre.
Yeah, 10.
Wow.
Bigger than a quarter of an acre.
Roughly, yeah.
10 something is
A
important.
tad more than a quarter acre.
People think of 8,000 square feet is such a typical lot. People think of that as a quarter acre, but it's not. It's like a fifth of an acre.
Okay. Then we will go ahead and adjourn this meeting to reconvene after our regular meeting, and we will move to our regular meeting. 5:30.
Thank you.
Got one question answered.
It's really. One down, 7 to go. We produce a code. Fine.
Thank you. We will go ahead and call our Orem City Planning Commission meeting to order at 5:30 PM on June 17th, 2026 in the Orem City Council chambers. And we will begin with an invocation by Micah.
Our beloved Heavenly Father, we come to thee at the beginning of this meeting to thank you for the opportunity to come together. We pray, dear Father, that thy influence will be here and that we'll make wise decisions. We are so very grateful for this opportunity to come together as a city, dear Father. Ask and say these things in the name of thy Son, our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Okay, our first item is item 3.1, which is approval of the June 3rd, 2026 minutes on our consent agenda. We have a motion.
I make a motion that we accept the agenda, or sorry, the approval of the June 3rd, 2026 minutes as written.
There you go. Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, Susan moved and Carl seconded that we approve the June 3rd, 2026 meeting minutes. And we'll begin with Susan.
Aye.
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 Okay. Consent agenda is approved. We'll move on to item 4.1, which is a preliminary plat. It's a Home Again Lane request to create a new flag lot generally at 600 South, 900 East. Jerry?
Thank you. And Madam Chair, the
Yes.
IT people are here. If you want them to try to fix it real quick, we can see if that'll help, or you can go forward the way you are. Doesn't.
We can give him a second.
You want to give a?
We're going to give
take a break for a
IT
moment.
just a moment.
Can we try it first?
Right. we found a workaround, so we will continue our meeting. Okay, starting with item 4.1 again, Jared.
Thank you. So this is a subdivision application for preliminary approval. It's just over 1 acre, 600 south, 900 east. The property's highlighted here. There is now, this aerial doesn't show, but there's a new home right here, just to the north. This is all in the R8 zone. You can see this is all R8 zoning. This is R12. This is a PD zone, but it's solid in this R8 zoning. It is, like we said, it's a 3-lot subdivision. You're going to have 2 deep lots or flag lots and 1 lot out here on 900 East. These 2 rear lots are served by the long stem that comes back to them, lot 2 and lot 3. They all meet the size requirements. I think I put that in your staff report. They need to be 125% of the zone requirement. That's only 10,000 square feet in this zone. All the lots included here are, the smallest one is the 12,355. The others are significantly larger than that. So these are all larger lots. 2 of them are deep, as we said, and this deep lot right now will be an easement that grants future dedication right away for us as a city, that one day we might be able to connect 620 South up to 900 East. Right now, there's a home here. The property owner there hasn't wanted to be part of any road dedication in the future. If they want to develop, we'll be able to continue the road, and this part of the road will already be in. So it'll be curbed on this side, curbed on both sides actually, but the curb will already exist here, and the setbacks and easements will accommodate this sidewalk in the future. So right now, because it's going to serve as a drive access, we're not going to have a sidewalk, but in the future we could. That dedication has been part of the planning for it. You can see that pretty clearly here. This is the future street dedication. And right now it functions as an easement across this long arm that connects lot 3 out to 900 East for these 2 lots to be serviced by. That's the property you can see from the street. And again, on this property here now, there is a home. And then that's my presentation. It's a fairly simple 2 deep lot subdivision with a 3rd lot on 900 East. Any questions from the commission for me?
Any questions, commissioners? No, is the okay. Is the applicant here? Would you like to come forward and speak and talk about it, or? Okay, yeah. Okay, if we have any questions for the applicant? Nope, okay, we're good. All right. Okay, so this is pretty standard. It looks like, just for clarification, it will be blocked off on the west side. There'll only be access from the.
There won't be access here until and unless it's able
Becomes
to go through as a public road. Not general public access.
Okay. All right. Hey. Anyone like to make a motion on this item? Can you read it, or do you want the?
I can turn and
Okay.
read. I move that the Orem City Planning Commission approve the request for a preliminary approval of the Home Again Lane subdivision on property located generally at 6th South and 9th East in the R8 zone.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Susan moved and Micah seconded that we approve the preliminary plat. Okay, Carl?
Aye.
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 Okay. Item 4.1 is approved. Then we'll move to item 4.2, which is a site plan for Costco Fuel Center relocation. It's a request to relocate the Costco Fuel Center to another on-site location located at approximately 648 East, 800 South.
Thank you. This is a site plan application. The Costco portion of this property is 13 some odd acres. This is the only change in this case is the relocation of the fuel pumps. Right now, they're located here at the north end. They're going to be moved to this area more adjacent to the building with more proximity to the building. And there will be additional pumps expanding that current situation. No changes to zoning, no significant changes that way. All related just to the pump moving. This is in the zone, the PD, I'm going to get it wrong, PD 34 zone. That's the I always say Union, I'm sorry, University Place. The University Place zone. It does allow for this type of use. There's been no problems with that. Neighborhood meeting was held quite some time ago, actually, because it is adjacent to, residential. So the site plan required a neighborhood meeting. And as we said, there's no change in zoning proposed. The old center had 8 pumps and 8 queue lines. 16 different people could fuel at a time. The new center will have 16 pumps in the same 8 queue lines. They're just longer lines now. And 32 people can fuel at the same time. So a longer queue line is better for everybody getting gas and probably for the site in general. The old center will be demolished and replaced with another 281 parking stalls. So additional parking will end up picking up parking in this case. And then we've been through the review from the DRC traffic engineer. Some of the time involved was in making sure that things worked and flowed smoothly with the change. Significant work done there and some changes made to the site plan to make the transportation engineer happy. And then he quickly took a job with Public Works. So he's the Assistant Public Works Director now. But he did get this done first, so we're glad for that. The site you can see here, this is the section we're talking about. Some of this was a little tricky for transportation, for moving around on the site, but it all should work smoothly with the longer queue lines. And there you go. This is the restriping that occurs for that 700 East traffic related to that the traffic engineer was working on. It eliminates the center turn lane on 700 East, and that left turn lane will resume at 1000 South. And it makes these intersections will still flow and function well with the new canopies and pumps going in. Landscaping related to the new site all checks out. That's all been approved. This should work well. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions for staff?
Right.
Can you turn your mic on, Carl?
Go back to the previous slide.
This one.
Maybe
One more?
that one, right? Yeah, that one right there. So the lanes are all right there. What is, I'm not sure what the diagram is showing as you come in that particular area.
Into here?
No, to the right, just a little bit.
In here.
Down. Yeah.
Stand up and point if
Yeah.
you need to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. These are underground tanks. Yes. So it's areas of impact.
Are they increasing this tank capacity as well?
That's a good question. I don't know. Becca might know.
Uh,
Or the applicants here.
Or the applicants might
Okay.
know. We can
Yeah,
talk to them in a second.
yeah, that might be.
I will.
Yeah, that one might be a little bit better for the applicant. I know they are beefing.
Yeah, I have no other questions.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
So
Any other questions for staff?
I guess my question would just be, I guess my car at Costco, I've been in those super long lines. I know we're doubling the number of tanks, but I would just be concerned that traffic would still back up. And where does that traffic back up to if it backs up? Because you know it will on a Friday afternoon.
yeah, so it's just like it squeaks as it gets moved over. Makes me kind of feel like I'm in a comedy skit. So I don't know how well you can see with it right behind you, but the queue lines will start here, and ultimately, if they do overflow, they will be pulling back out onto 700 East. I don't know if Costco has any future plans to maybe in high traffic times get somebody out there to pull it back here. No idea. That was not described on plans. But currently with what the information, what we have, it would be overflow hours. It would snake out onto 700 East.
Remember that these are double. The queue line
Jared,
length is double.
Jared, you have to speak into the mic.
Normally I have a microphone on my face all the time. Yeah, and remember too that this was part of the discussion with the DRC. These queue lengths have been doubled under where the canopies are now, where the pumps themselves are. So it shouldn't be an issue.
As a comment, my experiences in St. George and in Las Vegas, where my son lives, when they did this, the lines disappeared.
Yeah.
Pretty much because you dissipate the cars so much twice as fast because twice as many cars gas, and so they leave. So it's at least that's the experience. I'm not sure that's the case in all situations, but in this one, yeah.
In the attached report from Costco, they talked about that change and how much it affected it, so it does seem significant. Okay, any other direct questions for staff? Okay, would the applicant like to come forward, and you're welcome to present and say what you would like, or
Yeah, so my name is Josh Beach. I work for Core States Group. We're the consultant for Costco. You essentially covered any of the questions or the responses I was going to have to your questions. But if you have anything additional, I know there was some discussion about the queue length. Yes, it's going to be essentially doubled what the current queue length is. We're also doubling the number of pumps. With those two things, there really shouldn't be. That's essentially each lane is 10 cars deep in a queue. So there shouldn't be any issues with queuing. Essentially, well, because members are the only ones that are getting gas. The number of members isn't changing in the area, just the number of available pumps. So, and we did some extensive work with the engineering team and Public Works to modify the site plan to where they were happy with the design. So, like I said, I'm happy to answer any other questions you have.
okay, thank you. Carl, do you want to ask yours again?
Yeah, well, yeah, so the tank capacity and then also the anticipated tanker rotation for replenishing those tanks, is there, do you have any information about that?
Yeah, so the number of tanks is going to stay the same as they are. So there's 3 40,000 gallon tanks. There's another, I believe it's a 30,000 gallon additive tank as well. And so I don't know off the top of my head. I can't tell you what their schedule is like for the fuel drops, but as you can imagine, they're pretty regular based on the amount of gas that gets sold. And as you can see, that striped area is where we call that the outside fuel drop. That's where that truck will pull in to get off of 700 East to fill up those tanks and then pull back out. So it shouldn't impact traffic when they're there filling up those.
So because right now they're in fueling lanes.
They're in the way.
And they won't be in the
It
end of
won't
this.
be in the way. Yeah,
That's
that doesn't it doesn't go in the queue where the vehicles are stacked to get gas, and it gets completely out of
great.
the road.
Great.
So
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay,
okay, thank you.
thank you very much. All right, well, if we don't, Rebecca, do you have something you would like to add? Are you good?
No, not
Okay.
necessarily. There were more slides that were just showing you what it would look like, but it looks like every other Costco canopy fuel. It very standard. So no shock there. But that's pretty much it, unless you guys have anything else.
Okay. Nope, okay. So we can move to motion, or if I don't think there's any discussion. This is straightforward. It meets code. It's an administrative item. We're good.
Yeah, I move that the Orem City Planning Commission approve the site plan for Costco Fueling Center relocation located generally at 648 East 800 South in the PD 34 zone.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Carl moved and Susan seconded that we approve the Costco Fuel Center relocation. We'll go to vote. Susan?
Aye.
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 Okay, item 4.2 is approved. And we have no public hearings tonight, and Gary's not here to tell us anything, and Orem Fest is sadly done for the year. And so we will move to adjourn back to our regular meeting. I mean, to our work session. Sorry, this is our regular meeting. So I think the motion needs to include that we're doing that.
I move we adjourn
To
to our work meeting.
thank you.
I second it.
Okay, Carl moved and Micah seconded that we adjourn to our work session. Susan?
Aye.
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 Okay, we're adjourned from our main meeting at 5:53 PM. Thank you. we will reconvene our work session at 5:56 PM. And we'll get back to our session. So we decided 11,000 up. Let's see our where we're starting from here. Then I think we're clear on the may nots. So just
Yeah.
again, can't do those things, which means automatically if it's larger than 6, we'll just do the two on-site parking and one on-site for the various sizes. So that will be,
The parking's kind of decided for us too. We'll replace any parking that gets, that's a may. We are allowed to replace any parking gets eliminated. We'll probably want to replace any parking that's eliminated. Anybody have objections?
Yeah. I just have one question, but this may be getting a little into the weeds, is what is the rule for how much of your front yard can become a parking lot? Is it still stuck
60%.
to the same vegetation requirement?
It's 60% vegetation, is that right?
50%.
50% vegetation.
Of your front yard must be planted with living vegetation, and up to 50% can be non-living materials such as gravel, mulch. You could technically have turf. There's a specific provision on turf, and pavement is not specifically outlawed, so technically paved.
And do the parking stalls for these external ADUs have to be concrete or can they be gravel?
We can decide that.
I'm bringing it up so that we can, yeah. Sorry, that came off.
Concrete for residential is supposed to be on an approved surface like asphalt or cement.
Yes.
You can do what we want though. You could say gravel is acceptable if you want to for this.
The gravel strip ordinance that went through 2023
Couple years ago.
changed my life. I was like, boom, half of my case is closed. But the main specific designated parking spots have to be on hard surface pavement. And it does also actually allow for like pavers themselves. So you don't have to pour concrete, you can lay down bricks and pavers. The gravel strip parking can act as like overflow thing. But they don't count to your required.
I'm just saying we should probably, I think that
I
should be
agree.
clarified.
I think so too.
There's one other thing that is worth mentioning is that the current ADU ordinance, the current just regular ADUs internal, when you provide parking for that, you have to provide it to the rear of the house, to the rear of the front line of the house. So you don't get to just pave extra spaces in front of your house and say this for my
They
ADU.
have to be
They
allowed.
have to be to the side or the rear,
Behind the setback.
behind the front line of the house or the setback. Is the setback line or the?
25.
They could have open space on the side of their house, they have a garage, there's parking spots there, and then put parking spots to the side of that to the property line. Right.
They could, yes.
And does that differ on a corner? I'm on a corner. I've got a street here and a street here,
Yeah.
and I'm on a cul-de-sac.
They're not gonna let you have a driveway on
Yeah,
it.
that's a double access.
Yeah, they're not
My
gonna,
driveway's on the corner.
well, it's grandfathered then because they wouldn't do that now.
Kind of. Unless it's set back from the corner.
I'm not sure how it would.
They're just,
Several words on one side.
as long as it's from the front of the
So-
house, it doesn't matter if it's on another street.
So
That's the
do,
question.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that. I don't know the answer. I'm sorry.
I'll make an appointment and come in.
With like if it's just one driveway, that's technically there's if you're a corner lot, there's intersection laws, so there's a certain distance that you have to be away from the point itself. When it comes to obtaining a second driveway, so if you are in a situation where you're a corner lot and you have a traditional front facing one, and then you make an extra pad for overflow parking or tenant parking, if you were doing a curb cut, what you're supposed to do is apply for a curb cut permit. It goes through engineering. If they allow you to have that second curb cut, second driveway,
Okay.
it has to come through approval from engineering. They have the ability to say no if they
Okay.
where it's at.
Sorry, I didn't mean to apply that specifically to my.
No, no.
I think aberration,
It's a good case.
aberration lots everywhere that are a little bit different.
So I guess the question is, what you were going through, do we want to have gravel be an overflow only, which can be abused, or do we just say a hard surface period?
I want Well,
I would say hard surface.
I kind of,
I think you have the same requirements as you do for the primary.
why would you?
Why would
I
you?
mean,
It's-
well, if you're taking like the garage, I think you should still have your analogous.
So hard surface is defined as asphalt and concrete
Or
Or pavers.
paper. Nothing small.
Then, yeah, and then I guess the other question is making it consistent. Does it have to be behind, can it be in front of the house or can it be, does it need to be with the other ADUs? Which I
We're gonna-
didn't
we're gonna-
realize.
we're
we had
gonna
to
use
look at
it.
that.
We're gonna use it as a kind of an add-on to the current ADU stuff, if we're gonna format it that way. Makes sense. To me, it makes sense to say it goes behind the house. The purpose of an ADU or kind of the whole, the value proposition of ADUs when it first came up for us in Utah was you add this ability for another family to live on this lot or in the internal or in the external ADU, and you don't impact the neighborhood. It's because it still looks and walks like a single family house. It might have a little casita in the back or guest house or whatever. Still feels very single family residential. If parking 6 cars across the front of the house,
It's also a parking lot.
that's we have rules about the doors not facing the front. The second, if you've got internal ADU, your front door cannot, like Grace alluded to this earlier, your door to that ADU, is external, an individual can't face the street. It's got to face, can't face any street, can't face the corner, can't face the front, because then it looks like a duplex. And the point was for it to not feel like a duplex. It's not a duplex, it's an ADU. So
The struggle.
making them park on hard surface kind of, it goes against that sort of value proposition to me
Yeah.
anyway. But that's just how I got kind of sold on ADUs.
Yeah.
And if they adhere to those rules, I have never, in all the time, people were freaking out about ADUs starting out when it started, I don't know how many years ago, 10 years ago now. When people first started freaking out in neighborhoods, were losing their minds, well, there's ADUs going in and blah, blah, blah. Parking is gonna be a problem, everyone's gonna hate it, and it's gonna be loud, and that it's gonna get abused. I've never had complaint about an ADU once they go in. I'm sure there are, but I haven't taken.
Yeah.
I just say we.
Rebecca has.
Rebecca had a different experience. Rebecca attracts bad people.
But I think the underlying question is it the illegal ones people are complaining about? Or is it the ones that have gone through the permitting process with the city that people complain?
Yes.
Yes
Yes,
and yes.
yes and yes. I've gotten complaints about ones that are illegal and then they'll complain about something that even if it was a legal ADU is still not 100%. It's always the parking. People are really upset about the parking coming onto the street. And like you could even have a house that doesn't have an ADU. You just have kids who all drive and you all have vehicles and you end up in the same situation. Yeah, so.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, but at least when it's a single family, it's easier to think. It's not that big of a deal. Everybody just needs to relax and breathe a little bit.
It's a public street.
Exactly.
I've said that phrase many times in my life.
Be reiterated.
Okay.
Just having a thought. I'm not sure if, just thinking about how sensitive Orem is to parking. The issue of parking in the neighborhoods, just all the students and everything. I'm wondering if, and Pat and I were talking about this earlier, real quickly. The residential homes, single family dwellings have a parking requirement. And it is X, it's with 2 spaces. Is it just 2? It's not 2.5, it's 2 spaces. So let's say you've got a house and it's got a driveway, it's got a 2-car room with 2 cars in the driveway, it's got a 2-car garage. And they want to do a detached accessory dwelling unit. If we leave a rule in place like it's got to be to the side or to the rear, then that person can't say, well, I've got 2 in the garage for my house, I got 2 in the driveway for the ADU, so I'm good. They have to do something else. Well, let's say that they have something that helps that. It stays well parked, very good parking. Let's say that's not the case. So let's say that they have this situation, for example. So here's the parking for the ADU that they just built. And they said, we got 2 spaces in the front for the house, so we're good. If we wrote into our rules for the parking, I don't think the state code prohibits us from doing this. So this is just something to consider. I'm not advocating, I'm just telling you. Maybe this would work. Given this kind of situation, we could say in our rules, whatever your existing situation is for parking, that's your baseline. You put in an ADU that's 1,000 square feet, provide two more to the rear of the house somewhere. If you can't do that, then you're not a good lot for it.
Yeah.
Because we want everything to stay the same. So the neighborhood it's already in, everything stays the same, except you change things on your lot to fit the new rules. So from the street's perspective, it all still looks the same. You used to have a big driveway and a garage. Great, you still have that. And now you have extra around the side or in the back or whatever for your house.
Yeah.
We could say the baseline is whatever the existing condition is. It's a little mean, but it would reduce complaints.
It reduces phone calls.
And I will also say, we don't have any rules against paving your entire backyard. There is nothing about,
There's no storm, there's nothing, no.
We don't have a lot coverage requirement other than, like a lot of cities will have a lot coverage requirement for residential. It'll be like 35% of your lot can be impervious. So it's just like roofs and patios. We don't have that. We just have the 8% rule for more than 8% of your lot can be covered by accessory structures. So if your lot takes up all of the setbacks that it's allowed and you take up 8% with your accessories, you might be covering 40%, just depends on your lot.
So it was the front yard that was the 50%
Yes.
non-vegetation? Okay.
Which is kind of the situation on one of the houses that I have in my neighborhood where they've taken out the entire backyard and gravelled it and now it's parking.
Oh, they just park cars back there. That's gotta
I'd
be.
be
I'd say
I'm gonna look at it.
20 years ago, Provo was dealing with these issues and they passed impervious surface limitations for the rear yard.
Need to. It starts to become an issue.
Do we need to address that since we're doing the ADUs?
Maybe. It's something
It
that
would be a time to put into it.
It's a good moment to look at it.
Yeah.
Because I think that goes to kind of the debate we were having yesterday about pools.
Yeah.
And about, and pervious materials was a lot of what we were talking about, because once you put in, and pools are a little
They
odd
hold
because
water.
they hold water.
It can overflow, I guess, but they do pull.
But part of the idea here is that water, we don't have storm drains within our house. We just have everything either goes into the ground or it goes out into the street. And so how do we ensure that by the time you put in your pool and your pool house and your shed and your tennis court and how much of the backyard is now, on your giant patio with fire pit, how much of your backyard is,
The assumption for residential, like we were saying yesterday, is always that most of the lot is grass or a lot of the lot is impervious, is pervious, it's not impervious. Do you say pervious or non-impervious? I don't know, but either way, you know what I mean, right? So the assumption is that people have lawns and gardens and whatever, and so water is percolating and you don't need the storm drainage systems that you need at the Costco lot. You need the lawns. When people pave their backyards to park their cars all over it, well, now you're screwing up the kind of the assumption that this is all gonna drain right. And you're putting a lot more water out into a system that was not designed for that kind of.
So it seems like
Which is,
have that percentage thing again.
which is one of the reasons why they're on a lot of, like in other communities out of state. They do have the percentage restrictions. If you do put in that much, then you do have to put in at least some sort of a sump with a certain gallons.
And currently, right now, with our code, people can, for instance, lay cement, make a basketball court or more parking or whatever it might be without actually having a permit unless they're adding electrical. So if we decided to look at it, then we would definitely have to look at our code and make sure that those things would then require a permit.
Yeah.
Yeah, otherwise. Including the parking pad, like if someone decided. Cause that goes down to the surface level, right? It's saying, well,
Yeah,
Structure.
yeah. So if we're gonna get into that, then we definitely need to make sure that we say, yes, this now requires a permit where it didn't.
And it's a moment that would be sort of natural for the city to be looking at it. It's not like.
That's what I'm saying. This is kind of one of those opportunities where we have, okay, we got a lot of mess. Let's kind of clean it up as we go through this.
and it might be that we change this statute and then over the next couple of months, we amend these other ones.
Are you sure it's a statute? I'm not entirely.
Dang it, I said statute again, it's code.
I'm not sure it's a statute.
No,
I
it's
just-
city level, you're right, it's code.
You're the lawyer. I couldn't.
There
know.
We know what you,
Percentage that you can set on for this property, a parcel of whatever, residential, where enough stormwater can be absorbed that it's an easy number.
An engineer would be. able to tell it.
Is it 75%?
Yeah, I would say we should talk with Chelsea and so forth
It's
about
Yeah.
that.
it's probably more akin to 40. on residential lots, because they're just, those systems are not
No.
as robust as, they don't have storm tech in the parking lot system.
And it all depends on what the perk tests are and whatever, whatever specific area we're looking at, because that changes from one end of the city to the other.
Right. So it's gonna require engineering, whoever handles that, who knows what those things are, to come up and say, if you build in this area, it has to be 50%. If you're here, it's.
Work with them, absolutely. Matt, do you recall what Provost, they just did it specific to the backyard?
Yeah, I think it was like 40% or something, maybe 50%.
It seems like the cities where I've worked in, when they had a coverage requirement in general, besides not related to the structures, but just an impervious surface coverage. For residential, it's usually 35 or 40% overall. So where you've got
And
a
that was just the
situation-
rear yard. They
Yeah,
have
that was just
front yard
Yeah,
requirement.
it's probably about the same, like a.
The reason was because, especially south of campus with all the houses that have been converted through the years, and they were trying to ensure that these were all legal, and if they're not legal, they're getting into compliance. That's when our rental dwelling license, I used to work there, Provo's rental dwelling license ordinance went into effect, and, people were trying to get in compliance. Well, getting compliance usually meant they had to provide extra additional parking, but then they start paving the entire yard for parking, and so that's what kicked in that requirement, because, even though it's a high density or higher density, high student neighborhood, there's still just this feeling like, hey, every house should have at least a little spot of green space, not be completely, regardless of who the occupants are, so.
That makes sense. So we'll get with the engineers.
So the comment that I heard was what we could have them look at that. So what kind of workload does that add? Okay, all right.
It wouldn't be a big, I would guess Chelsea, it's gonna come in somewhere 35 or 40%.
Yeah.
Chelsea's probably already aware of it, and guess. We'll get with Chelsea, and knowing her, she's very, she'll be really thorough. She can, in 10 minutes, she'll call us back and tell us how.
And keep people in compliance. What kind of workload does it take to
Oh, sure.
manage that part?
Manage it after the fact.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Probably more, but it's just us looking at things more carefully, like when, even if we don't like require for hard surfacing, for example, even if we eliminate that and say, well, flat work is still flat work. We're still approving site plans for things like the ADUs. And so as those come in, we can calculate that or require that calculation. So we can manage it going forward pretty easily. And in retroactively, we won't be able to do much. Going forward,
From four, you have building fees, so those all be calculated.
It'd be okay. I mean, we wouldn't catch people that we don't catch anyway. The person that paves their backyard, like to park a bunch of cars on it, we won't catch them. But the difference is we would have a code in place to when their neighbors call and complain about it because they're getting flooded out. We have a code in place saying, dude, you weren't supposed to do this. You're gonna have to tear 60% of it out. We don't have that now. So it'll be a help to compliance in a way, or it would be.
And would that supersede the 8%? Or? would
No,
it
that's-
be in
that would
conjunction?
still be-
I just
that would
want for
be-
clarification.
That would just be part of it. Your 8% that you put down for your 8% limit for overall on the lot for your accessory structures would still be in place. This would be an impervious surface requirement.
Clarify in there what says an accessory structure.
I
Yeah,
think we'd have to, yeah.
we'd want to do that.
Yes, that would be a good thing.
Nice to have more clarity.
And we'll get that wrong at first and figure it out.
Here's where they were back to the pool question.
Thinking about pool.
Specifically the pool.
That's what we want this for.
100%.
And then things that haven't counted maybe in the past, like a sport. They count. But
Or you mean for an accessory structure, or do we have just a separate impervious surface?
they would just count in the impervious.
Yeah.
So that's gonna have to be clarified.
Whatever the code says versus what we've done in practice, okay, so.
Yeah.
We need to make it.
Anything that's attached to the ground and is above grade has been treated as a structure. If it's just a concrete slab or a swimming pool, we have not considered that a structure. And in fact, the best example is we had a couple, before you came on, Jared, some guy wanted to build he couldn't do an addition because it violated setbacks. So he wanted to build a basement
Underground.
underground that violated setbacks. And Jason Bench was like, yeah, that's not above grade. It's not a structure.
So his bunker was okay.
Bunker was okay, but anything above ground wasn't. Now, I'm not saying our code literally reads that way,
But that's been the interpret.
but that is the way it was interpreted and applied.
You know, to discuss if our nuclear fallout shelter in our basement is, I mean, in our backyard counts as
I think media.
accessory
And
structure.
if anybody wants to watch a fascinating Instagram, I'll find, is it Kayla Engineer?
Oh, you were telling me.
She's digging a bunker. It's fascinating to watch.
It's fine. I'm just.
Just please tell me.
And she finally got through, she got red tagged.
Oh, gosh. It's getting worse.
She got red tag and she worked through the permits over a year and she finally got approved.
Nice.
I think it would, like, to build on what Matt is saying, that's how it would work, is if we were to do something like this as a part of the ADU ordinance, or in conjunction with it, really, it would be for the purpose of assuming that the detached ADUs are gonna add to what's maybe not been a problem in the past, but could become, because they need parking there associated with them and not just the place. And so we want to make sure that we're not over the storm drainage systems. So we need this kind of a code. And it wouldn't be against the 8%, it would be just the overall. Because like Matt says, the structure thing being way otherwise. Yeah. We can figure that all out. That's good stuff. Thank you.
Chunk right there. So, and it does seem like there's extra things that are going to be and need to be rethought. And maybe it's not bad.
Can I ask a question going forward? Because this is the first thing that's going to come up in research, I think, too, or one of the first things is heights. If we're, do you want to set a limit, or do you think it would be a good idea to set a limit on the height regardless of how far it is from the neighbors' places? So like, we're not talking about two-story ADUs. We're talking about a lot of detached ADU ordinances, but the ones that I've looked at so far, not all of them, but a lot of them have single-story requirements. Anticipate floors of it. Yeah. It's been single-storied. And that's probably okay. It keeps some of the height. We have height issues with neighbors and things. But then that does eliminate, though, the possibility of saying somebody's got a detached garage, they got a huge backyard, they're
But see, at
600 feet.
at that point, it's an existing structure.
It is. So
So we're still within the same building envelope.
yeah, it's just be an ADU over the garage is what I'm saying, the Fonzie flat. So,
It
Yep.
stops them from raising the roof and putting in a second story above the garage.
well, if
So you're saying.
the height limitations right now.
I'm just saying the height restriction, but if you have an older garage that say has storage space above it that they can turn into it, it's in that same envelope. We're not gonna be able to.
I agree with that.
Safe to say that if that were the case, if we wanted to allow something like that to happen, rooms over the garage or rooms over a structure like that, that we would want those to have greater setbacks than.
Agreed.
So that's it's not a two-story straight, but it's a second story over an existing structure. Maybe not if that's not at least, 20 feet off or whatever, so that the heights are.
So it's not directly looking at the backyard, you have a greater angle. Right.
You can always do like, hey, it's a min 10-foot setback instead of a 3, and then it can't exceed the height of the main dwelling or something.
Something like that.
Agreed.
So, sorry, I'm thinking about the strange lots that I sometimes see as I'm going around. And if you're putting, it's gotta be 10 feet back, it's gotta be this, whatever, I think we're cutting out more people, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
It's a fact.
More people who can utilize that and I would just caution us to be careful, and I include myself in this, to make it so it's not just people who have huge lots who could do it, right? Because they're not the ones typically who need the extra cash or have grandma who needs to come live with them.
Agreed.
Or something. I think we need to be sensitive to that.
I agree with you on that, but at the same time, it's not the really big homes that are having the illegal apartments in it either. So it kind of goes hand in hand with it, with us putting the square footage restriction on there at 11,000 square feet. That eliminates a lot of the future struggle that we'll have on the smaller lots, the tighter neighborhoods. So I think we're safe as long as we stay on that 11,000 square foot line.
And keep in mind too, as always, it's not. The detached ones are going to be harder to do no matter what, just make the setbacks and things work. For the smaller, they're still going to be eligible for just an internal ADU, just maybe some remodel and change.
Right. Yeah.
They can still do that. So no one's going to be, literally no one's going to be without the opportunity to do it because our requirement right now is pretty minimal, isn't it, for ADUs?
R6 or
6,000 and above, 6,000 square foot lots can do it. Yeah. Internally, everybody. So we'll be careful though, because I agree with the idea of it being included. Some of the goals should be that this is to the community, to the housing need, to the, to the ability of neighborhoods to absorb this. But to your point, what I want ADUs to be able to do, just for me as a planner, is I want them to be able to absorb some of the need. They can't absorb all of it, but to absorb some of the need without the impacts that other things do. Because they can do it almost to zero if we do it right.
Rebecca?
I have a question.
Yeah.
It's more of like a, I don't know where this fits in. When it talks about like the state laws talking about like residential zones, we have PD 13, which is the residential estate zone that also allows guest houses on conditional use permits.
Yeah.
Does that mean we have to allow them in then two because they're
That's a great question. It is treated in there. In the notion of pre-existing allowances for guest houses and pre-existing prohibitions in people's HOAs, pre-existing development agreements that limit that kind of thing, those can all stand. As long as they're prior to the date that this was passed, or May something of 2026. So that's in there if you read in your stuff. But the first part of your question still stands to me, and I'm not sure how that works. Would we consider, my real question is, are there PD zones that we have that consider a single family home to be a permitted use? Or mostly those are PRDs. The PRDs wouldn't function because those have been attached housing, and this has no reference to attached housing allowance. So in most cases, the answer is probably not a problem. But there might be a few that are weird. We have that one weird PD, I mentioned it to Madeline yesterday, we have that one weird PD zone you pointed out to me where they get to do guest houses. And Airbnbs.
Airbnb.
Yeah, but we also have the one that in our code that specifically says guest houses are,
Are prohibited. It's in that same, it's in this section, actually.
yes, the internal section of,
yeah, at the very end it says it, and then if
Yeah.
you crack open the PD 35, it says guest houses are allowed with the conditional use permit.
Yep.
And yeah, that's why.
One comment as far as height. I do like the idea of doing it as simple as possible, something like 10 feet and then not taller than the main building. The thing is, we did just implement this new residential height thing that perhaps there are current houses that maybe don't fit into that envelope now that are like a legal non-conforming type of thing. Even if they are currently conforming, putting a structure of the same height as that closer to the property line would not fit in that envelope. And so that is one way that, you're gonna be building outside of that.
A single story, though, if we
A single
limit them to
story.
single stories, they're always going to fit.
Yeah.
Or in almost every case, if the pitch isn't ridiculous. So,
or 12-foot ceilings. And
yeah, if you're trying to put a 14-foot ceiling on a single
Or-
floor, yes, we're
The
gonna.
Thai Buddhist temple there.
If that's where Richard Gere wants to live and he wants to move to Orem, then he's gonna have. So sad.
I only bring this up because maybe we've watched too many tiny house tours on a particular YouTube channel. Because like I said, my daughter's very into this and we find it fascinating too, but like a lot of them to create space have higher ceilings. And that's how they get light and space. And so I'm not saying
It's the loft area upstairs.
it doesn't feel, and does a loft count as a second story? And like,
That mezzanine. So.
yeah, but I'm just saying that, so we sit here and say one story.
What does that mean?
What does that mean?
Again, we have the 18-foot limitation in place for any kind of accessory building that is in the setback right now. And it,
But
to me, it doesn't make sense that we would actually limit the housing to be shorter than that.
Yeah.
If someone's residence, when we allow any kind of accessory building to be 18 feet tall at its top.
Like you need consistency between them.
Yeah.
well, we're talking about up. Can your accessory building have a basement?
That is another question I was just thinking about.
Yeah, it was better.
I was thinking that one too.
I don't see why not. If you want to get the extra square footage that way, but then bear in mind, that the more square footage these things have. And I'm not as sensitive to parking. I'm not taking over parking space right here.
I know where you're going.
I live in my house right now. I'm the least parking intense person in the world. Orem is not that way. And the bigger these detached units become, the more parking they're gonna generate, or the more people's perception is gonna be that they're gonna generate. It's harder to sell, but
So do we stipulate that it has to be slab on grade?
I don't know.
That's a question.
It's a good question. I mean,
Yeah, I don't think
do we do that because it's an accessory, or do we?
Do you think that we should have?
I don't see why you wouldn't. If they want to put a basement in it, want to put a basement in it.
There's nothing in these state rules that say we can't do that. We can do that.
It's where you could put your shelter and then.
And then also we're, so at that same thing, we're going to be restricting the square footage based on the area. So that may eliminate the whole need for basement thing anyway.
That's a good point. Oh, well, and let me, as long as can I segue from that? Because that's exactly right. Do we think that just as we go forward looking at this, I think that's kind of the way it's going to naturally fall out, that the best way to do it, to determine the size that you're allowed, is based on your lot size. Exactly. Or based on your lot coverage size, or like, because you've got a house that's, some people take a 10,000 square foot lot and have a 1,200 square foot print house on it. Other people have 3,000 square feet on that 10. So maybe it doesn't matter though. Maybe we just do a lot size, you get a percentage of that. You'll have to live with your eighth.
Well, and let's look at it. The larger the lots, the larger the homes are going to be in that area. And so the less of an impact, there's just more area.
Yeah.
The less of an impact it's going to be visually and also to the neighbors because they're not so tight.
Yeah.
Whereas with smaller lots, inevitably you're going to have more. It's just like putting people in a tight room. I mean,
Yeah.
you're going to get frustrated.
Yep.
So.
You are dealing with percentages and you want to go that route. I don't know if preventing a basement is necessarily relevant, simply because, in other words, most people are complaining about they don't want someone looking over them or being able to see that. If they have that basement, then that actually reduces.
No, I agree.
You know what I mean? It reduces that feeling of having that extra.
Too tight. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
That's what I was kind of thinking I mean,
So
if above ground it's 100 square feet and you put in a basement, now you have 200 square feet. Is it really?
I think it's one of those things we're just going to have to make it a specific note to that the square footage, what you do underneath, as long as you're complying with the square footage percentage requirement that we have
Yeah.
above grade,
Setbacks.
as long as you're within that same, you can go down. You don't want to go down 6 levels,
Oh, of course
but
not.
you know,
Yeah.
we'll go down to the basement, we're fine.
Does a daylight basement change that if they're on a hill?
Good question.
That's a very good question.
I don't know.
I could,
Saying.
But you're safer on that at the same time because you still have the height constraint based on.
Because it's the
existing-
guy below who now suddenly has an additional dwelling that stares into his, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I-
I'm saying,
There, we can't turn it into a situation where there will never be a complaint.
oh,
It's impossible.
but if you can think it through.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Let's do that for your
I think we
sake.
go back to what our policy goal is. I'm gonna use the word policy goal even. Because if our policy goal is to make sure that this is usable by as many people as possible within reason, that seemed like a lot of qualifiers, but if that's what our goal is, does it make sense to necessarily eliminate something or a possibility because it could have
Right.
all these knock-on effects?
Right.
That might be one of those things where we come back in a few years and went, nope, basements didn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah. no problem.
Slab on grade, that's it. You know,
so the policy goal is then somewhere between meeting the requirements of the statute and opening it up wide.
Yeah.
We're trying to,
yeah, it's the middle of the road sweet spot that we're trying to, we want something robust enough that it's going to last and be okay and meets the code.
One thing that we will need to do though is if we do that with the basement, the envelope has to stay within the upstairs because you'll have these people.
Yeah, that goes-
Now we're gonna go an extra 15 feet that way and keep it underground.
And people are doing that to their house already, so yeah, why not do it to their little,
Well, hello, who had the bunker?
So that's cantilever. Play.
cantilever, I would assume we would do the same way. Projections that are cantilevered ordinances that are cantilever can't project into an easement, or sorry, not to an easement, but into a setback a certain number of feet,
Okay.
like 2 feet or something like
Yeah.
that. So that would still be allowed, I would assume, on something like these. The same setback rules. If we don't write a specific setback rule that exempts them from that allowance, then they can get it too. They can put a big window on their guest house or their DADU.
So, sorry. I had one question that kind of goes along here, was we're talking about how to attach something. Does it have to be attached? What is the rule for having a mobile tiny home in your backyard?
Building codes
Does
have to be
that
met,
code-
and so the same ones will apply. They'll have to hook it up to utilities and have to be on a
Yeah.
permanent foundation.
And,
So you won't be able to roll it in and out. So have one this year, but not one next year.
I just making sure that that's clear.
That was the state's, I think that's what the state was saying when they made that requirement, because that's usually the complaint is that people want to put tiny homes in their backyards. Like,
Are you on a trailer?
Yeah.
the thing that usually stops it is the foundation requirement. Providing parking for it and hooking it up to utilities, because they're usually designed to be self-sufficient.
It has to be.
The fee structure is to take the thing that's got a composting toilet and plumb it for a regular toilet.
Yeah.
That really offends the neighbors.
Composting toilets, oh,
But I'm just saying, mobile tiny home versus a tiny home, they are
No, absolutely.
different things. And so I think being clear that the intention is that mobile's out.
Yeah.
This is about permanent structure.
Okay, time wise.
I was gonna say, you still good?
Clarify that.
I think you're right.
Um,
That's all good information, you guys. Think it just helps. in
Yeah.
writing a lot.
setbacks we were talking about. One of the ones that I wanted to come back to, just because this came up in our conversation yesterday, is the front yard versus backyard. Does it have to be in the backyard? Because, and again, these are just hypotheticals, but there are houses that are set far back on the lot that they could choose to.
Mine's not in this state, but his casita is in front of his house, not behind his house.
There's that to consider. We could write like a really narrow exception into it too, just saying in most cases, it's gotta be in the rear yard. A front yard that's in X amount of feet in excess of the required setback, so double or whether just making up numbers, your regular setback is 25 feet, and you have a 75-foot setback. Then yeah, you could put in those cases, yes, we just write a narrow exception or something.
Yeah, I've got a 60-foot front yard, and about a 15-foot backyard.
There you go.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
just backwards. That's just.
Yeah.
backwards. What were you thinking?
Oh, it wasn't me. It was the guy who built the home next to me. He told my builder, I don't want my view blocked. Well, you built that house farther back, and the builder did for him.
Wow, that's a feat.
Oh, my gosh.
So I have very small back. Anyway.
Yeah, no, that's really
So
interesting.
that's
There
what I'm
are.
saying.
There are.
Lots out there.
Yeah.
Well, and you look at a lot of
Setup.
Yeah, and you look a lot of what's happened with our deep lots, where people come in and they divide and they want another house. And I've seen it kind of both ways, but like usually they build the larger, nicer home and back, and then they either rent out their front home or
Yeah.
has other family members living there. And so kind of
It's interesting.
what stops some of these super deep lots? And is it, does it go to our flag lot, deep lot question? And
Yeah. Good point.
This is
So
all.
another question, so if you did do a detached, so what are the constraints or are there any difference between same household occupancy?
If I'm understanding right, do you mean like you'd have to have
Related yeah.
related people? We haven't restricted that so far. In internal ADUs, the owner has to live in either the primary dwelling or the accessory dwelling. And I would assume we would want to do the same thing. I would assume that would be the case.
So like if you were going to do like a mother-in-law casita,
Actual mother-in-law.
yes, for your actual mother-in-law.
The question, I think under Orem's rules, actually, yeah, that would still need the ADU for that if it's gonna be a separate.
Because like my son's casita has no cooking. I mean, it's like
Where to cook it.
sleeping in bathroom shower.
Sure. Yeah, so you could build something like that, I guess, if you want to put a kitchen in it, it's up to you.
Yeah, frankly, the definition of an ADU does require some way, a kitchen area.
As opposed to just a separate detached bedroom, basically it's what
Yeah.
you have an ensuite that's not attached to the.
See, without meeting ADU rules, I feel weird about approving something like that. Like a building that's clearly for a detached bedroom.
Yeah.
I feel weird about that. But with ADU rules, I just say, well, you want to build it, I'll let you build it as an accessory structure, meeting all the accessory structure rules and meeting all the ADU rules, because clearly someday you're going to make it a kitchen.
Okay,
Because I think that's a good a differentiation is what are we talking about here? Does it have to have a bedroom, a bathroom and a kitchen? And what of a kitchen, how much of a kitchen does it have to have? Because I mean, some of those ones, literally it's a microwave and a sink, you know, does that count as a
It's
kitchen?
100% studio.
Right?
Yeah.
So where's some of
Depends
those?
on how much people cook anymore. I think that's just.
Yeah, I mean, you can have an air fryer and you can,
Yeah.
a microwave.
Sink and a
Toaster
microwave.
oven.
in other cultures, we were just in
Forever.
Thailand and they have developments now where there is no cooking capability in any of the dwellings. They anticipate they're going to eat on the street. So
Seen that too.
That's crazy.
Rebecca?
I did want to point out, I don't know if this is something that would be applicable at all or, but we do currently differentiate like with like internal ADUs between finishing a basement and putting a second kitchen in it with the intent to rent it out and become an ADU, or putting a second kitchen in it and intending to continue to operate as a single family home, like putting grandma down there. We have a second affidavit that you sign, and it just says second kitchen affidavit. It gets recorded with your property, and part of that says specifically that you are not authorized to rent out this space as an accessory apartment. You can put family in it, if there's enough of you to meet the 3-person requirement, and one of those people just happens to be downstairs, you can technically do that. But that's how we've differentiated it in the past, and building permits catches it when they come through. And we ask them, are you gonna be this one or are you gonna be this one? Because depending on which one you pick, we're gonna look into additional parking, like anticipating you renting this out to more people and not continuing to run with the property. So I don't know if that's something, maybe you say, if you are willing to allow a structure that's a bedroom structure, but not a full-fledged detached ADU, maybe putting in that you have to have some type of affidavit that confirms that you're not going to be renting it out. And if you change your mind in the future, you understand that you need to go through building it all up to speed.
It's a good question.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think that that's bad, because if the policy goal is to create spaces that people can live in, and because we have family that was at home longer, or we have parents who need.
If someone
Close, but
in violation, there's recourse through the city to enforce.
Yeah, I hate to bring it up,
Bring it up.
but I believe in my recollection, Fonzie did just eat with the Cunninghams. He only slept over there. He ate with the Cunninghams. I'll check it out. I'll go.
did Mr. T make the meals or not? Yeah.
I don't think he ever cooked up there. I don't know if that's just because he was Fonzie or.
Yeah.
or like,
It was either, he was always over at Alexander.
Yeah, he was just at the house all the time. But yeah, that's not a bad, that's an interesting point.
And if you are curious, code enforcement does have a case they're working on with Aaron about actually
That,
that.
That's boarding, right?
I know the one.
It's Sarah, like that's boarding. It's not.
Yeah,
Yeah, or it's the,
I know the one you mean, the garage.
so I mean, if we're curious about how legal feels about that, we want to see how they interpret it and how the judge rules on it, we can also kind of.
Yeah.
So does this change that? I mean,
This.
I don't know the whole situation of what you're talking
Wouldn't
about.
fix their
It wouldn't
problem.
fix the problem.
No.
Not really, the one that I'm thinking of.
Interesting. So just really quick, I mean, we should wrap up here.
Yeah, sure.
But I think we're in a good.
Yeah.
I
This
think
has
that gives
really
a
been great.
lot to
guys.
start. On the maze, was there anything else? Do you want to flip over to what we've been, if there was anything else?
Oh, yeah.
Setbacks and heights. We kind of talked a little bit about heights. We haven't talked about setbacks or percentage of lot coverage. Because the question is, I would also ask, does this change the percentage of your lot that you can have covered? Like, do we want it slightly bigger so people can put these in, or do we keep it at 8%? Or
8%.
what the reasoning for 8% was?
I think the reasoning for the 8% is because we don't have, it's probably twofold. I think it has to do with the impervious surface because we don't have a build for that. So it's to keep people from going nuts with that. And also just to keep some, when a rear yard gets paved over or gravelled over and cars are parked all over, it doesn't feel residential anymore. It's to preserve that kind of residential feeling, that single family feeling. You could increase it or we could exempt ADUs from it. If the size of ADUs is limited enough on their own percentage of the lot, then you could leave the 8% outside of that, say other accessory structures still allowed 8% and the ADU gets, well, you can't have an ADU with a floor plan that's more than a floor area that's more than 1.5 times the size of the lot. So you get 1,500 square feet, 1,000 or 10,000 square foot lot, and you could still have 8%
For everything else.
for everything else. That might work. We can run a couple of likely scenarios and see what it looks like.
So what's the average? Like, I mean, you look at like this example that you have up here,
Yeah,
like percentage of,
I don't know. I don't know because it's.
I mean, I know, yeah, but you look at that and you're like, okay, you got a garage here, you've got the other ADU, what?
We can start to look at what typical requirements are, but then also we'll take what our typical lot would be. And we'll crank out a sort of a likely scenario.
Yeah.
What it might be if we did a percentage.
Yeah, because be designed, because I think that's the required conformance to land use, we get that one.
Yeah.
Design consistent with preliminary dwelling, is that what we?
You want to do that?
Do we want to do that, or
I
do we
don't know.
want to talk about?
What consistency?
Consistent with.
I would say make it easy, whatever the exterior is on the primary, not color and everything else, but if it's a brick structure, you got to do brick in the back. If it's that way, it's at least it's a little bit
I
similar.
don't know if you want to require brick. I mean, you may go the other, because,
We can't, there's some of that we can't by state law.
yeah, because number one is it's now more expensive, you're inhibiting insurability and stuff like that. So I think we want to stay away.
Something with the style, consistent with the style of the primary dwelling.
That's
And I know that that's another
objective, right?
fluid word, but at least that gives, stick it in a room with 6 people looking at it and they go, no way, is that a consistent, I don't.
Your yurt does not match your,
Well, yeah,
you know, somebody's going to try.
as a planner, we like
They
to
already
make
have
things
better.
as clear as
I want a
possible.
geo-
We
I want a
hate
geo-
that type of.
Yeah.
We really do. We really-
I think it must be like the.
What kind of wording?
They're the worst. I mean, I've been in, they're just
I wouldn't-
the
I wouldn't
heating
have
air
one.
conditioning.
Wouldn't have
Terrible
anything
with
when
those
it comes to design consistency.
Being that, just leave the design.
Let it-
of
Just let
completely.
it flow.
It just seems like it's a personal preference thing and it's
It
kind of
is.
a muddy.
It is a personal preference thing. There are a lot of things
Yeah.
that people would just gasp at that I would adore.
We could keep it.
It just,
Oh, sorry, I didn't know.
no. So anyways, so that's where I'm coming from. I'm saying if you're muddying the waters, it's gonna make it difficult.
Well, I mean, and there's nothing now that prevents your neighbor from painting their house purple or
Believe me.
chartreuse or whatever.
Rainbow,
I
and
think
then
where
now
the-
they have to have their.
I think where these types of codes come in, and I'm not endorsing them,
See what I
is
mean?
when you have maybe a traditional looking home and they come with a modern, there's a juxtaposition there that some people just like, now I think, is it overbearing to say you gotta put a hip or gabled roof on a house so it matches the house? I don't know if that's really overbearing, but when you start getting down into like, materials and paint colors and stuff, that gets a little hard.
Mhm.
And then I would say I lost my train of thought, but it's.
And I get what you're saying, and I agree with you, because it's hard, because you can take a lot of what we have around here, and you could put a modern structure behind it that aesthetically is pleasing, even if it's technically not the same design dwelling.
Well, and I think.
I was gonna say a lot of the prefab stuff that is on.
It is
the market
modern.
It's all modern.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier.
No, I was just gonna say, but I think the market will naturally drive. Because when somebody goes to sell that or whatever, somebody's gonna come in and go, I'm not buying that house. That's really ugly. You need to paint it, or I'm gonna take a $40,000 cut on the sale of this so that I can make it look
Yeah, but I mean, but you could argue that that's the financial risk of the person putting it in. That's not our policy choice. That's
Right.
the city.
So you're saying it's going to self-govern.
Yeah, I think there's some self-governing that goes on in that.
I have a question just because I don't know. How frequent will it be that the detached accessory dwelling unit is visible from the street? You know?
Depends on the
I
lot,
feel like in
yeah.
a lot of cases, your side yards are usually like the smallest setback you have, and it's probably not gonna be visible very much, if at all.
Probably.
Great question.
The hope, I think the idea behind the whole concept is that it would largely not be visible in most cases until you're on the property, heading back on the driveway, or
Yeah.
you're adjacent to it in the backyards.
So at that point, like like the design of it.
Doesn't really matter.
Very much, yeah.
So maybe we strike that.
That's what
We don't do any just.
I'm not-
Maybe for first draft, we don't unless we get significant public feedback.
First draft, we
That's
won't
something
deal
we
with the
could-
design, and we can keep thinking about it.
Yeah.
Ask your neighbors and friends. Look
So,
at some things online. It's-
yeah. So it may prohibit it being larger than the primary dwelling. I don't think anyone wants it larger than the primary dwelling. Located in a utility or other easements located in the front yard, I think you still have to be outside your easements,
Yeah. we'll be-
especially your utility ones.
So just to clarify that first one, larger than the primary dwelling, you can build a new one and that becomes the primary dwelling. If you've got a small one up front and you've got a big space,
So you have a
can I?
11,000 square foot home on the back.
We'd have to,
This now becomes.
As long as it.
we'd have to allow them in the front yards. We'd have to allow accessories in the front
Front
yards.
yard. I mean, does it cease to be the accessory? I think what she's saying is, can you switch it? Can you have
Yeah.
the
Designated which one is.
500 square foot house that's been here forever in the back and make that your external ADU and build a new larger
Right,
house? in
sure.
front?
Absolutely.
We,
I just wanted to clarify that that swap can happen.
But remember, I think in that case, sorry, I don't want to complicate this, but this is what happens. In that case, one of the requirements of this is it has to meet building and fire and health codes. And little old homes sometimes don't. And when you rent an accessory dwelling unit, one of the, those of you who are processing accessory dwelling unit things, what's the big one that hangs everybody up all the time? Egress windows. And guess what? Grandma's little salt box, 150 feet back on that lot doesn't have.
But at the same time,
Basement
but
window.
at the same time, that's also a natural thing for people to consider if they're going to do this or else. If it ends up being a bad situation, because we do have those little teeny egress windows, then okay, maybe it's not.
I don't want to do it. Or, yeah, so that might be the case.
Instead of changing all the codes, let's just stipulate.
For the ones we have to deal with. I agree. But it might be possible, but it might self-govern too.
I was just,
I don't mind.
maybe that,
Yeah.
at some point, we'll need to
It's good.
clarify.
It's a good question.
I don't know.
Which goes to the next one, located in the front yard area. Is that one
We could write a really narrow exception, but I don't think it would be hard to do.
okay?
To say in some cases, it might be reasonable to allow that.
Let's, see what that turns out like and then maybe go from there on that one. Rented for less than 90 consecutive days. Are we going to assume these are?
These are going to be a lot longer than
long
that.
term.
Yeah.
I think
These are going to be long-term. I think if we put any shorter term, it's going to be long-term dwelling and you stipulate.
And like, and again, it goes back to what the policy is. If the policy is to create housing for people, then we are going to create housing for it's an external ADU. But that doesn't, I mean, then that goes the whole
yeah, that's a short-term rental deal.
short-term rental thing about, well, why could you do it on your internal, but why can't you do it on your external?
Yeah. And so until that question, I think for me, until that question is answered, it's a whole other
Sure.
question. Until that question is answered, we just shouldn't deal with it.
It's not-
The law of the land is right now, you can't have them. So until the council's ruled on it, we don't have to worry about it.
Right.
So
Okay.
we'll just,
So.
Because it would be assumed that it would.
Question mark by that one.
yeah, question mark.
Yeah, and that's fine. We can have question mark, but I just quickly,
Yeah.
and then is there another slide of Maze?
There's one more slide of maze.
Require the owner property. I think we said we want to have
Yes.
this on
They
property.
should still reside.
Yes. Require the replacement of any existing parking space eliminated from a detached garage. Yes. Prohibit more than one accessory dwelling unit on a parcel. So yes, we only want one.
Just one.
That's where we want to start from.
Choice.
That's easy.
We may prohibit it. The unit will.
That would be
Those,
smart
yeah.
to do, just to say. it
Yeah, I
needs
think
to
those straight up.
Show that it can be served okay and it's not gonna over systems.
Yeah. Cause I think those are kind of, we should prohibit both of
Should.
those. I think that's.
Madeline and I were talking about this the other day too. A lot of times, I haven't been involved in water master plan update in Orem yet, but in cases I have in the past, we usually farm this out to some firm like Hanson Allen and Luce, and they always wanted to know where we would and wouldn't allow ADUs. because they factor that in as a percentage of another ERU and equivalent residential unit. So we probably already planned for water and sewer for these things, assuming that they're going to be ADUs all. Can't swear to that, but I would guess we have, so probably be okay. Okay.
Cool.
I think that should, does that give you?
Yeah, it gives us plenty to work on for the next couple of weeks, and we'll keep this on the work sessions and keep it going.
Excellent.
So we're ready to put it, maybe one more work session, we might be ready to put it on a public hearing, because we probably ought to do it in July.
Agreed.
At least start it in July, August, to get it to the city council.
And I was like, we have to have it passed by the end of August,
Yeah.
our second meeting in August, which is only the 16th. It's not that far into August.
Thanks so much, you guys.
Yeah.
Thank
There's a lot of detailed work to go.
Okay. And we will adjourn our work session at 6:52 PM. Thank you. Thanks for being willing to stay.